Hello, everyone, and welcome to our presentation today. Thank you very much for joining us today. I'm David. I'm the CEO of Hexiosec, and today we're really pleased to be hosting this session alongside our colleagues from Jisc to mark the availability of Hexiosec ASM, Attack Surface Management, and Hexiosec Transfer on the Jisc licensing platform. Now, whether you're joining us from a cybersecurity role, IT, operational, or compliance, we hope you'll find today's session helpful in understanding how these tools can help you in some of the day-to-day challenges in cybersecurity that the sector is facing. So first of all, I'll do a quick introduction to the speakers today. So we're joined by our colleagues from Jisc, who will be giving a brief overview of CHEST and what it means for institutions. Then I'll say a few words about Hexiosec before handing over to Tim and Rich, both of whom are very experienced engineers who lead the development of our products. Tim will be walking you through Hexiosec ASM, and Rich, who will be introducing Hexiosec Transfer. There'll be a Q&A at the end, but feel free to drop any questions into the chat as we go. So first of all, over to Helen from Jisc to introduce themselves and share a bit about the CHEST platform. Hi, Helen. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Apologies. Thank you, David.
Hi, Helen.
So, Jisc is a not-for-profit. We believe education and research improves lives and that technology improves education and research. Jisc works with all UK and Irish universities and colleges, and I am from the licensing directorate, which is one of the many services that Jisc provides. Within licensing, we've over 300 agreements offered each year across different portfolios, including research, learning, teaching and assessment, and enterprise systems. Enterprise systems is my team, and we focus on the CHEST platform. It's Jisc's software licensing arm since 2019. It used to be EduServe until EduServe and Jisc merged. So what we do as a team is negotiate licenses for the mutual benefit of members, customers, and vendors. The data we have from 2013 says that the Jisc and CHEST agreements collectively saved the academic community over £130 million in license costs and efficiency savings. CHEST partners with global vendors like Microsoft, Adobe, Oracle, and now Hexiosec. We are delighted to have this agreement on board, and purchasing through CHEST simplifies the procurement process for institutions, making it easier for you to get what you need. Hexiosec ASM and Transfer are now available to buy through the Jisc agreement and the CHEST platform, and I will share a link in the chat. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Helen. Thank you. Right, so now I'll quickly introduce Hexiosec as a company. We are a UK-based cybersecurity company. We founded 7 years ago. We have a team with deep roots in cybersecurity. Our team has a strong background in UK government and the defence industry. So at Hexiosec, our mission really is to help organisations manage cybersecurity risk without adding complexity. We do two main things. We build cybersecurity products, which we'll be looking at today, and we provide cybersecurity consulting services, and we engineer solutions for organisations, all types of solutions, but especially cloud-based. So we work directly with organisations, including universities, to help them understand their exposure, make sense of their risk, and prioritise what matters. We're very proud now to be part of the CHEST platform, making it easier for universities and colleges and research institutions to get access to our tools. So the two products we'll be showcasing today, Hexiosec ASM and Hexiosec Transfer, are really designed with real-world higher education challenges in mind. ASM gives you a live view of your institution's external digital footprint, the systems, services, domains and IPs that are exposed to the internet, including some that you might not even be aware of. And Hexiosec Transfer is a simple, secure way to share files both internally and externally within your organization, with end-to-end encryption. It's been approved for use by central government, and we have a number of government departments as customers. So with that, let's get into the detail. I'll hand over to Tim to talk about our tax service management product, Hexiosec ASM. Hi, Tim.
Ooh. Hello, everyone. Thank you, David. Yes, I'm Tim Cowell. I'm a Principal Engineering Consultant here at Hexiosec. My own background, I've been with Hexiosec for about 6 years now. I have a sort of 20-year background in software engineering and research, predominantly in the sort of government and UK defence sectors. Yeah, so today I'm going to be taking you through just a couple of slides. I'll just bring those up now. Yeah, so I'd just like to take you through a couple of slides just about introduce to you Hexiosec ASM, then and then look at potentially a couple of specific areas around the education sector, and then I'll take you through a demo of Hexiosec ASM itself for about 15 minutes. Now it's a relatively short time for a demo of the app, but I'm hoping in that time you'll really get to see how powerful a tool it is and how intuitive it is to use, and sort of can bring value to you. So with that, yeah. So Hexiosec ASM is an external tax service management tool. It's something which will run. It's very simple to use from the outset of building the application. We've made it quite a key priority for ourselves to make it easy to use. We don't want people to have to work hard to understand what the results are telling them. We want the results to be clear, really enabling you to mitigate or take action depending on what those results are telling you. It's non-intrusive, so it's not disruptive, and it's showing you exactly what anyone else would see if you're a tax service. So it's you put in a small amount of information, such as your main domain, then it'll go away, it will scan, it will very quickly bring back lots of information, but it's showing you exactly what anyone else would see. But it's bringing all that data back, it's gathering that data itself and doing the analysis on you to help you understand what it's telling you. We pride ourselves in making it a very accurate tool. It will do a very good job of domain enumeration, IP enumeration, and discovering your assets, but also the results and the risks. We want them to be accurate. We want them to be clear. We don't want to we're avoiding false positives essentially. But it really helps you understand what's there. And often people will find things which they're not aware of, or it's very easy in this modern day and age to kind of set up lots of infrastructure very quickly, very easily with cloud services. That can be quite challenging to kind of manage that. So what with Hexiosec ASM, we're really making it easy for you to spot these things and help you keep track of these things. And final point there on the bullet is that kind of within Hexiosec we have a services team, and we have a lot of experience across the teams of kind of cybersecurity and helping people, and that really helps us build a tool that is genuinely useful for our customers. We don't want to just want to build a tool that people are going to find useful and really get to the main problems that people face in this day and age. Now, you see ASM as being key in all sectors, really, and they all have their own challenges. We do see that the education sector itself, or the academic sector, has its own unique challenges. I think there's a few sort of points we've raised here, and then we have actually got a blog as well on this. So if you want to go and read that afterwards, feel free to. Obviously with COVID and kind of just for modern technology this day and age, that there's a massive uptake in sort of cloud services, and it makes it much easier to set up infrastructure. Obviously in the education and academic sectors, you're often working with sort of the latest technologies, looking to, cutting edge research. That means obviously you're going to be using the new technologies and sort of potentially putting more infrastructure online, and people come and go from academic infrastructures as well quite frequently. And this can all create a challenge when there's a lot to manage, there's a lot to see and a lot to keep track of. With a tool like Hexiosec ASM, we're really hoping to kind of make it nice and easy for you to keep track of all that and see what's actually there. And then you may have, there's compliance you may need to keep track of as well. And then ASM can also help you kind of show evidence that you're working towards those compliance frameworks. And then you'll take an action to monitor your own infrastructure. And because it's non-intrusive, because it's passive, it'll run continuously, it'll run daily, and then it'll always sort of, it means you can keep up to date. So you're going to make sure you're always aware of your latest challenges you may be facing. So I'll just move into a demo now. So I'll just stop sharing. So what you're seeing in front of you at the moment is our sort of main screen you'd see when you first log into Hexiosec ASM if you had some scans already in your system. Now, I'll say from the outset, I'm running this in what we call a demonstration mode, which means you're seeing real data, but the data you're seeing has been anonymized, so which is why these you won't see any kind of real names, but it enables me to show you kind of the real value of the tool itself. So when you first log in, you'd see a summary of scans within your own organization. You can have multiple groups and you can have different roles and different people assigned to different groups. In this case, I'm seeing a group called sample scans with a number of scans in there. And they all, very quickly, you can see a quick summary of like the size of these scans, the numbers of risks associated with each one, the types of scan they are, so whether they're running continuously or not, and an overview of health score. And it just very quickly gives you a quick idea of what you're looking at and any kind of potentially scans with bigger risks and things like that. Now, what I normally like to do actually with a demo is show people just how easy it is to use. So you may, if you switch across to this view here, you may, when you first log in, see you'd have no scans in your organization, but you just simply, we produce a nice simple wizard, to help you build up your own scans. Now, there's a number of types of scans you can create within Hexiosec ASM. You'd basically be focused with yourselves with your own asset monitoring, which is essentially used for monitoring your own infrastructure. This will run on a daily basis, but we do also offer third-party monitoring, which runs at slightly slower frequency of a weekly, but it does the same thing, and it's potentially used for keeping track of any third-party vendors you may be interested in. And we can also offer ad hoc scans, which run once, produce the same results again, but again, they could be useful for potentially scanning infrastructure or services you may be looking to use. But very simply, just to create a scan, you simply just need to pick a name. You pick a group it might go into, click on to next steps, and this is where you put in your domain name. Now, typically, you can put in multiple domains, you can put in multiple IPs. Typically, we recommend people just put in their top level domain or domains if they have them. And that's all you do, because Hexiosec ASM is going to do a lot of that work for you. You don't need to go in and put in all your individual IPs if they're associated with domains already. You don't need to put in your subdomains because it's going to find those things for you. You can still add those in afterwards as well. So if potentially you had a domain which is perhaps on test infrastructure and may not be found from the main scan, you can still add that in. But what you don't want to do is do work which Hexiosec ASM is going to do for you. Then simply to create the scan, you simply add the seed, click start scanning. That's it, that's off it goes. So this scan will now run continuously, so it will run every day. I haven't had to do anything else, it's set up. There are more configuration options available to you, which you can look through, and we can go into more detail later if you're interested. But simple as that, the scan is now ready, it's queued, and in a short while, the system will pick up this scan and move it into progress. And if I just sit here for a little while, you'll start to see the scan start to bring in sort of IPs and domains. And typically a scan would run, a scan of this size would be quite quick. So it'll run in the space of a few minutes, essentially. So it'll be probably sort of 3 to 4 minutes. This will complete. Scan lengths can take a varying time, but typically very quick. So what I will do now is switch across to a more populated scan, essentially one that can show off a few more of the features of the application. So you saw the overview page on the scan I just created, and this is the same view on a different scan. Obviously a much larger one. You can see it's discovered around sort of 3,000 domains and IPs. When you first switch into a scan, as I have here, you get this overview page, which essentially gives you a very good, quick overview across all the different aspects of a scan and sort of highlights the two main aspects of what we do, which is the domain enumeration or asset enumeration, so the discovery of things and discovery of infrastructure, but also the identification of potential risks as well. So these could be vulnerabilities in the case of CVEs, and we're getting our data from NIST on a regular basis, on a daily basis. But it can also be the checks of website configurations and different network areas. So within this overview page, you can quite quickly get an idea of the sort of the scale of the infrastructure you're looking at, your health score in different areas of your infrastructure, and one is bad, 5 is good, essentially. So you can see here, this particular scan has quite a low score on vulnerabilities and lower scores on websites and network. But then you also see the number of risks. And then if for a scan which has been running over time, I'll just scroll down a bit here, you can also see the kind of change in risks over time as well. So you can get a nice trend graph if hopefully, but typically you'd want to see that trending down. And something I highlight here, actually, we do from time to time, we'll add new capability to Hexiosec ASM. So we'll add potentially new checks for new things to help you manage your own infrastructure and to help you. If we do that, that may result in more risks being found. But then we'd highlight that here. So it's nice and clear so we can show you. You can see here where we've made a change to our TLS certificates. But we've highlighted that on a risk chart. So you'll see if there's a sudden uptick in the number of risks you're seeing, it's not necessarily because of you, it's because the system's changed to help you. The checks widget's quite a nice one actually to highlight what Hexiosec ASM is actually looking for. So you could have a scan with very good results and a complete clean system, but you still want to have that confidence that the scan is running and is still checking these things for you on a daily basis. And this is something the checks widget can show you, and it's a nice way of highlighting all the different things we'll check for you within Hexiosec ASM. So you can see we do checks of mail configuration, so SPF, DKIM, DMARC. So those configurations we're discovering. We'll look at various aspects of website and HTTP setups. So this could be security headers. It could be sort of other kind of CSP configurations. We will look at TLS certificates as well. So we'll look at if there's any invalid or out-of-date certificates or expired certificates. And we're actually about to add some new capability as well to do more additional TLS checks on the system, which we'll be bringing to you quite shortly in the next few weeks. We'll look at port information. So we'll look for vulnerable ports on IPs and domains. This is an aspect where we get some of our information, although we're non-intrusive, we don't do port scanning ourselves, we will get some of our information from third-party services to bring back into the app. And if we see some of the legacy protocols, such as Telnet or FTP, those sort of things, we'll flag those up for you to be aware of, and then you can take mitigating actions if necessary. And then finally, as mentioned before, we check for, so as part of what we do with scans, we'll run sort of browser sessions, if you like, on websites, much as a human would do. And from that, we'll gather various aspects of information, including versions of components found. So it could be a version of Nginx or perhaps a version of PHP found. And if we find that version and it has a known vulnerability against it, then we can show that. And this is where we'll show this information here. And you also see that we have this black exclamation mark here. Now, as well as getting the information on the latest CVEs, we also bring back information on CVEs which are known to be exploited in the wild. So you might have heard them termed as KEVs. So this is where we'll highlight those. They don't necessarily change the severity of a risk associated with a particular CVE, but it can help you with your prioritization. So if you have two high CVEs on two different components, you may want to focus on the one which has a known exploit against it. I'll just scroll down a little bit here, but you're seeing these widgets. They're all showing you different aspects of the scans. They could be domains, could be IP addresses. Typically, we'll sort of bubble to the top the assets with the greatest number of risks or the highest severity of risks associated with them. I'll just take you to a couple of the subpages now. I won't go through all the pages. We don't have time in this demonstration today, unfortunately, but I'll take you to a couple of ones which are worth highlighting. we have if I go to the actions widget, so we have a concept of actions in the app, which is where we'll group, rather than giving people thousands of risks to potentially to kind of manage and become perhaps overwhelmed by, we kind of group risks together in actions, which are kind of literal tasks people can undertake to fix things. And we'll group those on common risks of a certain type and on domains and IPs. And just so you show, most of our pages have this nice filter view as well here, so you can see, if I drop this down, there's all sorts of different ways that you can filter on different aspects of the scan. So I could pick severity, due dates, that sort of thing. Now the actions actually comes with a Kanban view as well, which is typically how it's more popularly used. This is quite an interactive board where you can move actions around. You can assign them to people. So if I click into this action, you can see you can assign it to people. We can set due dates. You can write notes, so you could share information about potentially mitigation actions or mitigation steps you're aware of which have already been taken. But then you'll also see all the different sub-risks associated with that particular action. So all the things that need fixing. And we pride ourselves in trying to provide good information. We don't just want to sort of present people with a lot of risks they need to go and address, but also try and provide good descriptions of what we're finding and why we might be finding these things. So for example, on this particular one, this is a TLS certificate action with a couple of TLS risks associated with it. The certificate's expired and it's also invalid. But we provide a nice description here in this case of why we might be finding this and what this might be related to, but also the typical remediation actions against that particular risk or risks associated with this action. So you could, as I mentioned, you can move actions around. Sorry, you can sort of move them to prioritize and progress. You can mark them as done, indeed, as well. What you can't do is mark them as resolved. This is something Hexiosec ASM will do for you, essentially. So when the scan next reruns, if the two risks in this case dropped off the system, so we've seen they've both been resolved, and then that action is automatically resolved for you, which is a nice way of you having that confidence that the systems, that your actions you've taken are working for you. And finally, I'll just take you to another good page which we think is really powerful, certainly when you're new to a scan as well, which is a web presence page, which is where we show web information, so information on web pages found within a scan. We'll run what we call headless browsers against websites, as I said earlier, as a human would do. These will gather screenshots. So this can be quite a nice way of literally seeing what other people see on the internet. And quite often, certainly when you have lots of subdomains and other URLs associated with your main domain, it can be hard to keep track of what's there. And often people will find, these are demo images, but these are good examples of what you'll find. And you'll see here that this is a Windows IIS landing page. So this essentially is a web server which potentially has been set up, but isn't actually being used. And that's quite a common thing to see, that people can have infrastructure which has potentially been forgotten about or hasn't been completed. And it just highlights that to you. It doesn't necessarily mean there's a security risk associated with that, but it's potentially infrastructure, this kind of shadow IT type infrastructure you may not be aware of. But also you can see other things. So you may see, if I scroll a bit, yeah, so you may see like a login page as well. So a page which is potentially doesn't have a risk associated with it, but it's something potentially where you're logging into an admin service behind the scenes, and you may have expected this to be behind a VPN, or you may have expected it to have some other protections against it and not to be visible publicly. So this will just highlight that to you. So it makes it quite nice and easy to see. So that's a very quick sort of overview, really, of what ASM can offer. And you can see there's a number of other subpages here, such as domains and IPs and all these sort of things, and different ways you can interact with scans. So if you are interested in having a more detailed demonstration, I'd encourage you to reach out to us or ask questions in this call today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tim. That was very insightful. Right now, so we're going to turn to our second product, Hexiosec Transfer, and to walk you through how it works and how it fits into the higher education sector, I'll now pass over to Rich.
Thank you, David. Good morning, everyone. My name is Rich Young. I am Principal Solutions Architect for Hexiosec and also the lead developer for Hexiosec Transfer. I come from a similar background to Tim. I've come from UK defence engineering before specialising more into cyber and particularly encrypted data transfer. So I'm going to now present some slides, which hopefully have come up on screen. So today we are going through some of the details of Hexiosec Transfer, which is now available through the Jisc platform. This will be the enterprise tier of the product, and the demonstration today will go through some of the features of that product. And if there's anything else that comes up, please do ask in the Q&A at the end. So what exactly is Hexiosec Transfer? Well, it's an end-to-end encrypted sharing tool, which means at no point do we have access to any of the data that is shared in the platform. The reason we came up with this tool is we came from a background of being a consultancy business. Now, we had a need to send data out to partner organizations, both new and existing partners, and also bring data back in. So that could be sending reports out, sending contracts out, NDAs, test results, or then bringing signed documents back in, or things like event logs, all data that we would consider to be sensitive, that we didn't really want languishing in email inboxes forever, basically. But the main driver for us was to come up with a tool that was simple and secure. So we didn't like the fact that in a number of other tools, recipients who aren't involved in the platform have to sign in or create accounts. We don't want to hold any more personal information than we have to. So yeah, we came up with a tool that is simple, but was not going to sacrifice security at any point in the process. Now, the way we do that predominantly is through sharing links around, which is challenging in the modern sort of cybersecurity space. The way we make this tool get around that problem is by extending the trust that the user can expect from your brand to the links that you share. So we know that sharing links is a problem. Phishing attacks are on the rise, and the education sector is no different from the commercial sector in those risks. So we know that our recipients need to trust that the links they're receiving are authentic and that they're expecting to receive them. And we do that through making the tool able to be fully white labeled. It has your branding, it has your domain, and therefore it carries an extension of the trust that your users expect in your brand. Particularly in the education sector, it's extremely varied, probably goes without saying really. So it can range from small institutions focused on specific research all the way through to much larger kind of beyond enterprise scale organizations, which could have massive staff footprint, huge numbers of students, and then very varied commercial relationships, not just within this country, but across the world. And in research that was published in 2023, educational institutions are more likely to have identified a breach within the last 12 months than equivalent sort of UK businesses. So cybersecurity, particularly around transferring data, is just as much of a problem in the education sector as it is in the commercial world. And also there's different types of data being shared around between education sector and further afield. So some of that is specific to the education sector, so things like large research data sets, and some of it is actually the same as what would be expected in the commercial world. So HR data, any kind of commercial partnership agreements, all the sort of contract and other sort of sensitive agreement type stuff. But also the HR side can extend to student data or alumni data, which again can be much broader than would be expected in the commercial business. And as I mentioned before, it's not just limited to the UK. A lot of research crosses country boundaries, and so organizations need to be aware that you're not just subject to the rules and restrictions in the UK. So obviously within law we're aligned to the EU GDPR, but institutions need to be aware of the requirements of both the countries and the companies or institutions that they're dealing with further afield. So what I'm now going to do is drop into a demonstration of the product. If you just give me one moment, I will get that on screen. So let's share demonstration. So hopefully now on screen you should be able to see a demonstration of the platform, and what I'll be going through today is a number of different ways of using it, and an overview basically of the features that you can expect when this is deployed in your organization. So to start with, what I'm going to go through is basically the simplest use of it, which is just sending data from one person to another. So obviously I am signed in as a user of Hexiosec Transfer, and I'd like to share some files with someone. So I would go to the share file screen and I would set up how that transfer is going to look. What I can do is I can enter a description so that when I'm managing all of my outbound transfers, I can see what I've sent to various people and when it was sent. In addition to that, I can set expiry conditions on that transfer. So what that means is this particular example is going to be available for 5 days, and it's going to be able to be downloaded a maximum of 3 times. When either of those limits are hit, the transfer is no longer accessible. There are other security features which I'll come to in a subsequent demonstration, but for now I would click next and go through to upload some files to this particular transfer. And on this page, it gives me an option to select files from my local device, or I can drag and drop them into the page. Now, this is an example where I'm sending some sensitive files. It's more than just one file, and for convenience, the system will zip them together into a single archive so that the recipient gets those files through in one go. And there's an opportunity to change the archive name if needed, but usually you can just leave that as it is. Then I'd click upload, and it would then be transferred to cloud storage, ready for the recipients to receive that. Now, how does that file then get to those recipients? Well, on this page, once the upload is completed, you can see that we've got access to a secure link. This is the main way we share data within the platform. It's mostly secure link based. We do have some experience of some email systems causing issues with links, so we do also offer an alphanumeric code which can be pasted into the homepage of the system as well if there's any issues in sending through email. But most of the time, people get to this page and then click share via email. And what that does is it opens up a draft email ready for you to top and tailor as you would need to, and then add in your recipients. So what I'd do is I'd go into this, I'd start typing in the address that I want to send it to, and then I've got the opportunity to add a bit more detail to that email, you know, who it's to, adding any introduction or outro, and then I can also format that as I need to, really. So in this case, you know, I'm saying who it's to, who it's from, and then formatting the section that's been pasted in from the tool, and then I would send it on. And at that point, this link is then shared with all those people that that are the recipients. So what does it look like for them? Well, assuming they've received it through their email client, they might click on the link, or they might copy and paste it into their browser. So this is an example browser where I'm not signed in. This is what you would see as a public user of the service. In this example, I'm just going to paste the link in, but had I used the sharing code, I could also paste that on this page and go from there. So a user would come to this page, they paste that link in, and it would take them through to a preview of the download. Now, we don't automatically download files to people's devices. This is part of the trust that I mentioned beforehand. We give the recipient a moment's pause to see, well, firstly, is this authentic? You know, is the service that it's coming through something they're expecting to use? Is the sender someone they're expecting to receive data from? And then in this case, the file metadata is visible. So we can see in this example, it's a zip file containing 3 PDFs of identity documents. In this case, yes, that is something I'm expecting to receive. So I would go through and I would click next, and that downloads those files through my browser, and then they're available in my downloads folder. So that's the simplest example of how that gets through to your recipient. Now, what if I've sent some files and I want to recall them? Well, I can manage my sent files from within the outbox within Hexiosec Transfer. I can see how many times it's been downloaded, and I can go into that transfer and I can say, well, actually, maybe everyone that needs to see it has already seen it. and regardless of the other expiry conditions, I can expire it immediately. And then at this point, that transfer has expired and it's no longer accessible. Anyone who uses that link will be prompted with a message that says it's expired, and if they need access to the files, they would need to contact the original sender. So that's an example of how you can, not just at the point where you send the files, but you can also recall them at a later date. Earlier on in this demonstration, I mentioned there were additional security features, and I'm going to go through those now using the secure message example. And now a secure message in Hexiosec Transfer is a very thin wrapper around effectively creating a text file. So we use this for all sorts of things that don't really need files to be attached. So, but by means of a demonstration, I'm going to show the additional features here. So I've enabled 3 separate options here. First one is that I'm going to add a password. Now, adding a password to a transfer doesn't actually increase or doesn't actually change the encryption in any way. But if you have a separate means of communication with your recipient, say something like a WhatsApp chat or a Signal chat, then you can send a password separately to the link, which then means you can authenticate your recipient a different way. Another way you can authenticate your recipient is by requiring them to prove they have access to an email address. Now, you can do that just as an audit mechanism, so you can allow anyone to access it, but they have to give their email address. Or the third option I've ticked here is to actually limit that list to a specific set of recipients. Now, in this particular example, I'm going to use one of my email addresses as a recipient for this particular transfer, which will mean only that address will be permitted to download it. Obviously, it would need the password as well. So this is the secure message feature of Hexiosec Transfer. You can enter a subject and you can enter a message. As I say, we use this for all sorts of things. In this particular example, it could be like an account number, if perhaps it's being used in a financial context. And in this case, I'm going to generate a password. Now, it's not expected that you're going to remember a password like that. It is available on that same screen that gives you the link and the code later in the process. So now I've generated a password, I'll click upload, and that will save that secure message ready to be sent to my recipient. And as you can see, it takes you to a similar page with the link, the code, and also the ability to get back to that password if I need it. You'd probably send that via email, as I say, password via a separate mechanism, and then that person would come back into the site, paste the link in, and then they come back to the download page. And this looks a little bit different to what we had before. Rather than skipping through the verify step, I've now got to perform some of those verification actions that weren't necessary previously. So the first thing I'm going to do is I need to verify my email address. And as I said before, this needs to be one of those that is in that limited list of addresses. So what I would do is I would type my address in, click get code, and then in the background, it's going to go and send me an email with a PIN code that verifies I have access to that address. And that's valid for about a week. So if I'm dealing with a lot of different transfers within the system, I don't actually have to keep doing it. I can keep that session alive in the same browser for up to a week. And then the other thing I need to put in to verify this particular transfer is that password. I'm going to assume I've received it through some other means, and I would paste it in and click next here. So before I click next, it's worth noting that the actual content of this transfer isn't yet visible. So we encrypt the metadata just as strongly as we do encrypt the content. So things like file names, file sizes, that's all treated just as sensitively as the actual content within those files. So currently, all it says is protected content with a wrapper size. Once I click next, it tells me, this is a secure message. It's very small. It's something I'm expecting to receive. I would have that same pause for thought. Do I want to continue with this? In this case, yes, I do. I would click next, and it should take me through to a viewer for that particular message. So that was the examples of sending data out of the system. So me as an authenticated user sending data from myself to someone else. But it's just as common to need to actually get data back into my organization. And we do that through the request files feature. So again, as an authenticated user, I would go into the tool, I click sharing request, and then this prompts me to, in a similar way, set up a sharing request. What I would do is I would add a subject to this. this is actually visible to the person who you're sending that sharing request to. So it gives them some context as to why you're asking for files in this particular case. So as an example, I'm going to imagine I'm requesting some identity documents from a particular person, and I'm going to set a submission deadline as well, which means beyond the deadline, it will not be possible to add files to this sharing request. And multiple files can be uploaded to the request, so it's not just limited to one person. You can use that multiple times, and then once you're done with it, you can also prevent further submissions to that sharing request. So I've gone through the process here and I've created that sharing request, and it takes me through to a similar confirmation page as an outbound transfer. I've got a link, I've got a code, and I can share that via email in a very similar way as I've demonstrated previously. What I probably do here is go click share email, and then we'll go and have a look at what that looks like from the perspective of the recipient of a sharing request. So they've gone to Hexiosec Transfer either via clicking the link or pasting it in, and then they're presented with this screen here. Now this will look very similar to the screen you saw previously when I was adding files. The only difference here is it now shows me that that subject as why I'm requesting files, and also who I am, the person who's going to be the recipient to any files that are added here. So, you know, as a user of this service, I'd then go in, click the files that I want to add. And in this case, I've got a passport scan, and I would upload that. And that then goes through to that recipient. You can use this multiple times. So I don't actually have to send another request if I need to. I can go back into this one and I can add another file. And that doesn't just have to be the same person. It can be multiple different people submitting multiple different things. So as the creator of that sharing request, well, what does that look like to me? In the background, I'll have had some emails telling me that that sharing request had been fulfilled, and I can go into my inbox, see that I've received 2 files, and go into that summary. You can still get to that link and code information if you need to share it further. Just as soon as files are received, it is then collapsed, focusing on those files that have come through into your inbox. So that first file I've got here, I can choose to download that one, and that's then available on my device. Any files uploaded to sharing requests are valid for 30 days. As I mentioned previously, when sending files out, I could set an expiry condition on sending files out. Expiry conditions also apply coming back in. This is not a service for long-term archiving. We see it as more for transient sharing of information and ensuring that information does expire and it doesn't stay sat in email inboxes forever. And as I say, the same is true of sharing requests. So I can choose to download those files, or perhaps there's some files here that have been submitted that I don't need, and I can go and just remove those particular files from the sharing request. I added a deadline to this one, but if I want to end it before that, I can choose to archive it, which then prevents any further submissions. But if I need to then get back into it, I can unarchive it. And as you saw from that drop down, there's also options to then delete that sharing request if it is no longer required as well. So that is how the system works through the web browser, both sharing and receiving files. We also have an add-in for Microsoft Outlook, which simplifies a lot of the file transfer process as well. So this is an example of a draft email, and at this point, I'm not doing anything different to what I'd normally do in sending an email. So I'm picking the person I'm going to send this email to, adding a subject to it, and starting to write the content of that email. And then I would choose to add some files to it as well. And all of this so far is identical to how one would use Outlook in a day-to-day basis anyway. So at this point, I've got my draft email ready to go. I've got some attachments in it, and I would then launch the Hexiosec Transfer add-in. And what this will do is this will open in a sidebar, and then it will remove all of the attachments from the email and stage them ready to create a new transfer within Hexiosec Transfer. And similar to using the web browser, I can go in, I can set that expiry information, I can set the maximum views on it, and also I can set those security options as well. And particularly with the email verification options within Outlook, this uses the recipient list in Outlook itself. So there's no need to enter email addresses separately. It's all done for you by using the Outlook add-in itself. Once I've added all the files, I can still add more at this point if I want to. I will click upload, and then I can insert that snippet into the email ready to go. And then I can finish drafting my email. I don't actually have to keep the add-in open at this point. It's done its job. And then once I'm ready, I can send those that email through to my recipients. So hopefully that's been a very interesting overview of the features of Hexiosec Transfer. If there's any questions, please feel free to add them to the Q&A section. And yeah, that is my demonstration of Hexiosec Transfer completed. So David, back to you.
Thank you very much, Rich. Great. So quickly before we get on to the Q&A, and quickly to summarize, so Hexiosec ASM helps you see what's exposed and take control of your external attack surface, something that's becoming more and more critical for institutions as they grow, particularly true for larger education institutions like universities, where they have quite a lot online. And Hexiosec Transfer is fully brandable. So it's a very straightforward way that you can send and receive files, as Rich has explained. It's designed for the realities of academic institutions, environments where collaboration spans departments, partners, and also third parties that are outside of your organization. So we've made those both available on the Jisc platform. And okay, we've got a few questions coming in now, so I'll have a look at them and field them to the right people. So one we've had was about ASM, which is, does Hexiosec have any deeper insight into the education sector needs in comparison to competitors? So I'll just answer this one myself. Yes, we have. We've actually done a lot of scanning of the education sector. We've been commissioned to do surveys, annual surveys of the AC.UK range, so we have actually scanned the whole of the sector, and from that we have actually had quite a bit of insight into what is visible there and what's seen, and we have built that into our tooling. What we would say is really that particularly, you know, you take a university, they tend to have the largest attack surfaces that we ever come across, and that includes very large organizations, and I guess that's partly due to the kind of the nature of the organization, the way it's you know, historically, etc., and lots of different parts to it. You know, we've been trialed by the NCSC on their ACD 2.0, which is their active cyber defense, where they've been trying to understand what is the baseline that attack surface management products would have and need to have for you know, being able to kind of service the sector, education, and also public sector as well. Okay, the second question we have is on transfer. So we've got one. So this is for you, Rich. Where is the data stored, and what does the system SSO to?
Yeah, so the database for Hexiosec Transfer is hosted in the UK, but then the actual location that uploaded content, encrypted uploaded content, is stored is actually customizable. The vast majority of our customers choose to store data in a data center in London. As an example, you know, if you were doing business in the likes of Australia and moving from Australia to Australia, all that's going to do is add latency. So what we do is we do allow content to be stored in any data center in the world. However, our main database is UK hosted, and so far pretty much everyone who uses the tool hosts data in the UK. So we do offer this as a UK sovereign service. Particularly with end-to-end encryption, it does mean that there is less reliance and less trust needed to be placed on those data centers, and particularly their residency. We can't reveal the content of encrypted data, and so neither can they. Is the simple answer on that particular one. I believe there was a second part to this question in terms of single sign-on as well.
That's right, yes.
Yes, there is. So we do offer single sign-on. As I said in the demo, we don't really want to hold any more identity information than we have to, and the same is true of, you know, the customers that we're working with and how they sign into the system. So we support single sign-on through both Microsoft 365 and Google Workspace, and realistically, any provider that is compatible with OpenID Connect would be compatible with the system from a single sign-on perspective as well.
Okay, great. Is there a plugin for Gmail? That's a question.
For Hexiosec Transfer, at the moment, no, there's not a plugin for Gmail. However, if your system is configured to open email links in Gmail itself, all of those buttons that I pressed that showed share via email would open in Gmail, and they would also maintain that same snippet of content that would be inserted into the draft email body.
Okay, thank you. And this might be one for yourself, Helen. How does the agreement support institutions facing constrained cyber budgets, especially FE, further education?
So on the Chest website, you'll be able to see we have a generous discount from Hexiosec, and the pricing is banded. So the Jisc banding takes into account the size and FTE and budgets of the different sizes of institutions. So the pricing is tailored to that, so to speak. So it's as good as the pricing can be, and yeah, the what you get for your money is a good deal.
Thank you, Helen. Yes. And last one was another one for you, Rich, which is what is required of a customer to get the product sort of running in terms of styling, branding, SSO details, those sorts of things.
Certainly, yes. So this is a software as a service tool, so we host everything for you. In terms of getting Hexiosec Transfer fully set up in an enterprise configuration, as I've mentioned, we do SSO, so we would need the SSO details, most of which we can work out given an email address. For the white labeling, the branding of it, we require a header image in a sort of landscape format, a favicon for the page, and then a choice of light and dark theme, usually to complement the background color of the logo. And we also require a primary color, just as an accent color for matching your brand, basically. We have a few instances of Hexiosec Transfer that we can show as examples, but what we would do in setting up an enterprise tenant is provide a mock-up that shows how that's going to look before it goes live. The other things that we need, as I say, a choice of data hosting location. Obviously, the database is in the UK, but content can be stored anywhere you like. And I think that is largely everything. The only other thing, if you do want to host it on your own domain, you will need to set up a CNAME record pointing to a location that we would advise so that your domain can point to our service. And I think that is everything for setting up an enterprise tenant.
Okay. Thank you, Rich. And the same one question for Tim. How would you set up, what's required to set up an account for ASM? Does anything need to be installed or anything?
Nothing to install. It's very easy to use, very easy to set up. It's all online, so you just kind of log in. You get an account on the system when you sort of pop in your domains and IPs, and off you go. Really, there are controls. So there's role-based access type controls you can put on the infrastructure, and you can invite users into the application. But there's nothing to actually install. There's no kind of nothing for you to do. We offer SSO as well, so Microsoft 365 Entra. So could be some setup there if you wanted to have SSO, but if you just want to use our kind of local standard accounts, then nothing too much to do, really. Quite simple to get going.
Okay, thank you very much. So that's the end of the questions. So that's the end of our webinar. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending. Is there anything you wanted to add, Helen, before I sign off?
Just to say again that for more information, get in touch, look at the website. If you log in, all the pricing is up there and available. There's a free trial available. If you're interested in that, get in touch. Thank you.
Yes. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending. It's been a really insightful webinar, and please reach out if you have any questions, as Helen says. Okay, thanks very much, and see you later. Bye-bye.